What is up, folks? Casual Dad here with another Warhammer Combat Card stream. I'm sitting at the top 6%, pretty comfortably at 128 out of around 150, but it is the final couple of hours of the ladder season, and so figured I'd get a couple ladder games in real quick. Let's pop this open first. Common pack, great, not very impressive. But so here's what I'm going to do. I do want to get a couple ladder games in at the top of the season just to go ahead and record that and see what things look like at the top of the ladder. Kind of to help me figure out what I want to level up next season, but then also just to kind of show off some of this and these high level games. The last stream I did, I ended up against 4 decks that I pretty handily beat, so I'm hoping to see something a little bit scarier this time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play 10 ladder games. Maybe you stick through with me for all 10, maybe not. With some of my top decks and see what else I go up against and see how badly I do. I fully expect to drop out of the top 10 or top 6%, excuse me, because this is the absolute toughest time to play competitive ladder games because the top tier decks are pretty dominant in Upper Terra, and that should be most of what I see. So I should probably get smacked around a bit. So let's take a look at our top decks. Let's look at the top factions. So I'm sitting in Aeldari, Tyranids, Chaos, Servants. My Aeldari, my top one right now is Lilith Hesperax. I may do one with her and one with the Avatar just to try it. For Tyranids, it's the Swarmlord by a mile, hands down. I think I'd just do 2 with the Swarmlord. With Chaos, I have been doing well with Abaddon, and so I'll probably take a stab at that. I fully expect him to get beaten up the worst of all, but we'll see. He might surprise me. And with Servants, it's a mix between Creed and Greyfax, so I may do one of each of those as well, depending on how it goes. So we'll start right up with the top. We'll go with Aeldari. I'm going to go ahead and start with the Avatar first, just as kind of a warm-up. And my Avatar deck is it's fairly standard. It's probably nothing terribly unusual, but the reason that it works is I got these cards to comfortable levels to the point where they can really, really punch and have a little sustain so they can last long enough to really make it to where the Avatar hits the board. That scared me for a second. The absolute last thing I want to face with a small deck with high hit points is Captain Artemis, so I saw that profile image and freaked out. But I should be okay against Zephyrblade. And Zephyrblade is good, and you can see this guy's gotten a 3.2k, so I fully expect this to be a challenging match, but it's a good matchup for me in this, because Zephyrblade himself is not terribly scary, and the Avatar is a pretty solid Headhunter deck, so I fully expect him to be able to finish off Zephyrblade in the end, where some other Warlords could struggle just to get that finishing blow before Bodyguards took out your Warlord, so that's kind of where we're at here. Trading some fire right in the beginning. I should quickly pick a first kill here, and then probably not another one after that, but we'll see. No, definitely not after that, but that's a bummer. When your throwaway card is the one who gets the damage buff. That's right. Just a quick recap of the Avatar's ability. Whenever a card dies, one of your friendly deployed cards gets a bonus plus 15 to its melee stat, but it's random, so there is some luck involved where it all could go to the worst card possible for it. In this case, this guy, that wasn't great, but that is fine, and we gotta punch through the shield guy here. This is a slightly off-meta Zephyrblade deck, but I do find personally that it's most effective with a fair number of Psykers. With Psykers and then also shields. The Psykers help you do some extra damage if you're up against an opposing shooting deck. They help you kind of work through that. And the shields, of course, help you get that defensive punch so you can rack up enough damage without getting eaten away in a lane too quickly. You can see how a lot of his bodyguards here are going very quickly, and the shields help kind of stop that bleed a little bit. And there, 3 cards died, so I got 3 cards get a melee buff, and that's going to make this guy pretty terrifying. I did lose my Solitaire, but it is going reasonably well. And so I'm checking, he's got 3 in the tank still, so this guy isn't going to move to the right. So I will get to hit him. And of course, fairly predictable. And we'll see how the timing goes. His precision shot, yes, fires before my fear triggers there. Well, no, it looks like it was after. Okay. I was just looking at something else at the time. This still is closer than I was hoping. He's still got a pretty scary deck up against me. And he's still got one more card in there. Probably the Crimson Hunter, but we'll see in just a second here. I should be able to cut through this fairly easily, though, because he's got... Fairly easily is never something you want to say, especially against a deck like Zephyrblade. And Zephyrblade, I didn't mention this, anytime a card dies, whether it's friendly or not, all cards in a Zephyrblade deck, whether they're on the board or not, get a +3 to their ranged attack stat. So that ramps up very quickly. I saw some folks saying that he becomes useless at higher level. I really don't think that. Obviously, his damage buff is less significant, but the bodyguards he can take get much more powerful. So in the end, that's going to hurt. I probably have a wipe, yeah. So here it's a matter of seeing if the Avatar can finish this off, and this is going to be a tall order. And if I don't kill Zephyrblade, and I don't know if I can, I think he got me. So I think he got me here. That's a pretty standard Zephyrblade deck, except with the shields. If I had a higher level Avatar who did a harder Furious Charge, this would be an easier challenge, but I'm pretty sure he's got me. Because I won't do 130. If I had... Yeah, he's got me comfortably, because this guy's shooting for some insane amount of damage. Yeah. But back to the point. So because Zephyrblade is still very cheap, the bodyguards you can take just get better. I still think that there's kind of an up and down, where when you're starting out at lower tier, Zephyrblade is really good because he rewards you even if you lose your cards. So I lost that first one, no surprise there. So we're going to jump to Lilith and give it another try. But going back to Zephyrblade, he's really, really powerful early on because you do get some benefit for losing cards, which at lower level you're going to lose more. And it'll ramp up lower attack stats so you get more benefit from it. But he still is the cheapest Eldari Warlord by a good bit, and so when you get your really, really powerful range shooting bodyguards, he's absolutely the guy to take them with. And those cards get so good later level that it doesn't really matter that his ability is not really as effective as it is early on. So I still think he's very powerful, and I don't think you should discount him at higher levels either. Clearly that guy was 3.2k and he beat me pretty handily. For my Lilith deck, in the past I've done a pretty heavy mix of melee and ranged. And also mixed in the Shadowseer to throw in some shields in there. And in this, I've completely removed the shields. I've made it all range shooting to really double down on that, because what I was finding is even though the mixed deck had a much more durability, I struggled to finish the game because I wasn't putting enough punch through switching off between attack types. So far, this has been very, very effective. It's still what they would call... The usual Lilith deck has the Solitaire and the Shadowseer in it, and then a lot of range shooting, so a lot of people refer to it as the Flying Circus. But mine is just, I guess you could still call it a Flying Circus, but a different kind. That is good and bad. That is very good because I did bring a really aggressive range deck. It is bad because that is Badruk, and I've talked about him in my guides where his timing is extremely aggressive. Where I've got, well, I guess the redeploy doesn't really apply in defense anyway. What are we gonna do here? I'm gonna drop this guy here. And this is always a tricky matchup too. Badruk is especially obnoxious if you have really scary shooting, because in that case, Badruk isn't gonna shoot you. And you end up having to shoot at him until he activates, or until he gets this utterly overwhelming range shot that you just don't want to take. So eventually I'm gonna have to shoot him, which is a little bit better with Lilith because my cards will redeploy, but also worse because when my cards redeploy, that opens up the remaining cards to get hit even more. So like right here, you're going to see all of the shots go into Bor Morgan Ra. Ooh, gross. And that is unfortunate. We'll go ahead and go with this. Sorry, Morgan. I probably am going to lose Morgan Ra here. Let's see how much damage this guy does. 84, which will comfortably kill him. Okay, so, well, but with the debuff... but I'm still going to take the damage on this guy. So his area effect damage is going to weaken Morgan Ra enough that even with the debuff, I'm fairly certain I'm going to... Oh, no. And, of course, the redeploy triggered at an awkward time. So right there, the Crimson Hunter could have soaked that shot. I didn't really want it to, but it could have. Oh, jeez, this is... terrible matchup, and this is a really, really, really scary Badruk. Expected at this kind of stat level, but still not what you want to hit. It is fortunately my turn and not his, but this is definitely not where I want to be. Especially with that, that's going to hurt. Yeah. This thing hits so hard. Oof. Alright, so I'm also comfortably going to lose this one. I do want to highlight, before I lose all of these games, that I did get here to basically 3.4k for Eldari, comfortably with the cards I'm running. So when you're looking at this, don't judge me too harshly, because I have had a very effective run here. And so me getting my butt kicked game after game after game here isn't a full indication of how well I've done. This is okay. Now this is a moment where it sure would be nice to have some shields. So this was like the worst possible matchup. This could not have gone worse for me. Don't redeploy, little one. Please give me a shot back. So here's the thing. If my Crimson Hunter stays on the board, he shoots. If I don't die outright, which I still might, and I did. Yeah, great. Okay. Blah. Gross, Badruk. I really don't like Badruk. I think he has too many advantages. I think the combination of his ability with the bodyguards is just too good. And the other problem with it is it's just, like I've said before, he has every single possible advantage. You can't play around it because you're just going to get your butt kicked if you make any mistake whatsoever in deck building and play, anything. Badruk is absolutely punishing, and that's visible because it's extremely hard to play around the AI. If the AI can play the deck near perfectly, it's probably too good. Which, you know, I mean, I'm just complaining at this point. But, so, 0 for 2. Let's see what the next faction can do here. So that was Eldari. Next up is going to be Tyranids. We're going to go ahead and bust out the Swarmlord. And now, in either of the last two matchups, I don't know that the Swarmlord would have done better. Maybe. But against that Badruk deck, that was a very, very high-level Badruk deck with some really nasty cards. And the big game hunter on the one really hurt me in a couple shots there. Alright, Zendrek. This is, and it's a small deck, so I expect a lot of Satan. This is going to be brutal too. And in the past, the timing on Medicae was so that AI played it badly, so Medicae would trigger before other cards drop. So this would be exactly what I want to see, because those two would both have triggered their Medicae before. Okay, still tracks. Thanks, guys. So the thing is, you put a Medicae card in a small deck to keep alive the one or two really big pieces that actually make up the deck. Since it's just the Medicae cards right now, it's going to take me a while to chew through that, but it's not like a 500-point Satan, who's going to be dangerous enough even without the Medicae. But that's what I expect to see. And we saw the Nemesaur's ability triggering, where he gives a random, every turn he'll randomly, maybe, either apply a buff or not to either melee or ranged. So we'll either do a 50% buff to melee, a 50% buff to ranged, or just remove the buff. And then also when he deploys, we'll talk about the second part of his ability. You can also see the Swarmlord's ability triggering, which is that passive debuff to the attack type that the opponent uses. So every time this guy shoots me, he starts the following turn, and there we saw a melee debuff to ranged buff. Every time he attacks me with something, he's going to get a passive debuff to that stat, which makes Swarmlord decks a lot tougher than they look on paper, because if it's a one-trick pony deck, like a Tolmaron deck that shoots a lot, it's always going to have a disadvantage and not build up that attack type very successfully. And you can see these psychic cards, they're dying quickly, but they do so much damage, and that's really good too. He's probably still gonna, yeah, still enough to do that 25. That's really good too, because it means he only has one really hard-hitting card in this deck. I say that, and then there's also, of course, going to be the Varguard himself. You know what? Is that a good idea? Probably not, but we're going to do it anyway. Get a little Inspire on the board, bring out the Swarmlord. Should kill this guy. Perfect. And then, let's see. Okay, now this is a risky play, but I'm going to go ahead and take out both these guys. Because there's going to be a scary Satan. Hopefully he puts it up against my Neurothrope. He didn't. Balls. Okay, well, excuse me. Alright, so Nemesis, he's got that outflank, and then the first time he's going to take damage, he'll instead pull his card back into his hand and then redeploy as Varguard Oberon, which is a taunt and now shielded card that is really, really scary. So we'll do this bad boy. It did open up my Neurothrope, who does a lot of psychic damage, so this isn't the worst. I may be able to pull this out. We'll just have to find out. So he's going to pop back to his hand right now, and then Varguard's going to come up. Insane bonus. The Varguard only has one life, and then he disappears. But in the double... So he always had taunt, but in the double secondary traits edition for legendary and epic cards, he now has shields. So taunt and shields. Usually you could kill him in one go relatively easily, but now that he has both taunt and shields, he's got really, really heavy damage reduction when he launches. So he ends up filling a lane where before he would usually die before Nemesaur hit the board again. Nemesaur. So this is going to be a tough matchup. I should be able to tank this because I've just got so many hit points and he's going to be shooting every time, which isn't going to be terribly impressive. Except the Vargard's melee buff is going to suck. And I say not very impressive, and then look at that, 88 damage. Good gravy, what level is this thing? This is level 12, god, okay. So it's a really, really powerful Nemesaur, whatever you want to call him. I should still be able to cheese him down, we'll see here. If he doesn't kill me this turn... No, I still don't have the melee to pull that out. Woof. Yeah, this one was won by Oberon. Oberon decided that, because otherwise I would have built out a melee buff to do just enough to take out that 136, and that's actually why I really love the Swarmlord right now, because his melee attacks hit hard enough to swing a game. But if something is consistently debuffing you, like the Vargard, there's nothing you can really do about that, so it's just kind of a slow loss. Very effective deck, very scary. That's how you do a 3k Necron deck. Alright, so 0-3. Basically expected. This is pretty much what I expected to happen. These are all pretty rough matchups and very competitive, powerful decks. But we're going to keep going. So I'm going to go ahead and try the Swarmlord again, see if I can get a better matchup. There is every chance I will be knocked out of my top 6%, but that's okay. All in the name of recording a video, right? And I wanted to show some of these decks just to do a really good job showing what other people are running and what you run into at the upper level, what the 3k decks look like. So I'm glad that every single one of these games so far has included a 3k deck. So I'm not, the last time I did a stream of, or a video of some of the more aggressive decks that I was playing against, I ended up against 2.3k decks with my like 3.4k, which I'm sorry to keep throwing out numbers there. But point being, I was really, really favored in all of those matches, and in all of these ones I'm less favored. In this one, I'm still favored to win it. We'll see if I can pull it out with that, because this guy's only 3k pretty much on the nose to my 3.3. So I still have decent ratings on these decks, even after getting pretty much whooped. But we'll see if that carries through to the end. Those melee debuffs, those are really make it very challenging to carry a melee deck through to the end game. It's why the really, really punchy warlords like Ghazghkull and Abaddon are particularly good, because they have the built-in melee buffs. Swarmlord is also good, but not exactly in the same way. Let's see if he'll Psychic me. Sweet. I say sweet, that's not great, but if he hits me for Psychic, then I'm hitting him for Psychic and defense. I do still need to take care of Tigurius, and I don't have a clear path to do that. So we're going to do this, and I may punch him. I don't want to punch that. Okay. And here I am going to go ahead and hit him with Psychic. I'll lose one of these copies, but it will take him down, bring out the last card. I'm guessing the last card is going to be Njal, and it's going to be really, really difficult to clear through to Njal. Yeah, there we go. While also dealing with Tigurius. He of course switched to melee because it's the favorable matchup this time. That was actually an interesting choice. I wonder if I do enough psychic damage to actually worry him, and that's good. You can see though that this deck leans on pretty high level cards and then has your heavy psychers and then shields. That's really just the long and short of it. So whatever your highest level shielded card is going to be your backup in this, if you ever were to run this deck. And this actually is working out fairly well. I'm going to throw him here. I do want to keep this guy on the board because he's really, really good against Acheran himself. And you can see how he also switched attack types because of the debuff from... he did it again. So the debuff from the Swarmlord is having him do somewhat... not off meta, but some things that the AI wouldn't normally do because it doesn't have as favorable of an attack. And that's something that's unusual to the Swarmlord that you don't see with sweet, got him, that you aren't going to see with a deck. What am I thinking? If Acheran is against a non-Swarmlord deck, you're not going to see that as much unless the debuffs. I really hope he hits me for Psychic. Of course he didn't. If he'd attacked with Psychic, that would have been better, kind of. No, it would have been better. So here, and he's got me too. So the obnoxious part here. So you have to have Acheran's shields down because you have to kill him twice, and then you also have to have a bodyguard to the right. They can do the same attack type to actually finish him off with that extra 5 health. And this is an especially rough matchup because Arjak can really hit me back hard in melee, where most other bodyguards can't really. So, that's a bummer. So I'm probably going to lose this too, just because I don't have what it takes to finish off Akaran. And on the list of warlords that are kind of problematic, one that people complain about a lot is Akaran. And you can kind of see why right here, where like I've just completely outmatched, and there's nothing I can do about it. In the other games, I kind of could have played around it, but the combination of y'all with just the sheer offensive punch he's got, and having a second life, and having shields, and having to kill Akaran twice, it's a lot. Like, even here, I have the power to completely overwhelmingly just annihilate Akaran, except I can't, because I have to kill him twice. And I can't even hit him with any other attack type just because of the combination of offense he's got. So it's both the extremely scary defense on top of the extremely heavy offense, makes him very, very tough to deal with. Had I been able to keep my area effect psyker alive just one more turn, I could have cleared that lane and killed Arjak and kept him out of there. And with that guy there, that would have been enough to win that game. But as you can see, it was not. So that's 0 for 4. Next up, we have our... next up was Chaos. So Chaos is at the top now. So we're going to go ahead and do my Abaddon deck. And I'm going to do both the Abaddon deck and then also the top Huron deck. That's one I hit in the ladder the other day that was very, very challenging. It's good, but the one I have isn't as high level as the one that really beat me up. But it's still a very powerful deck, so it goes. Good. So we're seeing one of the other meta monsters. Logan Grimnar has made a huge impact on the meta in the last season or two since getting the secondary traits. I don't think the thing is the secondary trait for Logan himself, because he got Berserk, and he's never on the table long enough for that to matter. He's just very, very good, and some of the bodyguards he can take got a big benefit. And so, all told, he ends up quite a bit more scary, even if he himself has not improved that much. That might have been a mistake, but we'll see. We'll spread it out a bit. And this is one of those things. He's a heavy melee deck. He does not want to attack me in melee, because I would hit him back much harder. This is also good. He is a highly rated Logan deck, so I'm a little concerned about what we're going to see in that deck. It's another thing, too, where it could be all kinds of combinations. Space Marine, melee Space Marines in particular, are in a really, really good spot right now, where they just have a ton of options that benefit this well. The target acquired guy's a good call. And of course the filler's the cheapest Medicae in there, of course. So that's, I'm not seeing much of the deck on the board right now, and he still has 4 bodyguards in here that could be all kinds of terrible things. Alright? And if a lot of them are cheaper, that means the remaining ones are going to be real nasty. So both of these are under 20 points. So what else I'm going to see is going to be pretty scary. And you just saw there Logan's ability trigger. If a card is killed in melee, any excess damage is, what is it, 1.5 times? Yeah. So 1.5 times whatever excess damage is dealt to the nearest adjacent card. So that can do a lot of damage real quick. And I'm bleeding cards here, but that's kind of what Abaddon decks are supposed to do. You want this steady cadence where you are losing cards and taking out enemy bodyguards, so you are preserving some of your... Ooh, that was close. So you're preserving some of your offensive punch for Abaddon himself. But also don't take too long to pull Abaddon, because you want him to be in the fight personally. Oh, yuck. Which we have done here. Let's go ahead and hit that guy with Fear. This is still going to be a kind of a brutal thing here. Let's see how hard you can kill me, Logan. And that was probably a mistake. You saw I've got a target acquired card in there, and since I haven't played it, I only have a couple bodyguards left. I'm going to have to play it. And since target acquired doesn't work on bodyguards... Oh, yeah, that was not good. I'm going to have to play it against one of his... Excuse me, it doesn't work on warlords. I'm going to have to play it on one of his bodyguards and miss a hit on face. So I should have played that guy much earlier. I should remember that about target acquired. If you have target acquired in your deck, even if it's not the best matchup, you want to throw it sooner than later. Can he kill me? Fingers crossed that he can't. I can't quite kill him. I think I have this. I just need to activate one more time. The melee debuff should be enough, fingers crossed,
to keep him from killing me, alright, and my melee buff will be enough to take him down. Perfect, I got him. Okay. Whew, Nailbiter. I mean, now it's not close, but had he been able to kill me there, that would have been. And that's, had I not had this guy for the melee debuff, he would have. He would have definitely done melee and gone for lethal, so. Another thing to watch out there for there, too, is I don't have that many hit points had, oh, what's his face? Ragnar. Had Ragnar, who does damage when he dies, had he been lower health and been on the left, had I killed him before killing Grimnar, he could have killed Abaddon there. So that would have been awkward. So, going into this, if I were to guess that my first win was going to be Abaddon, that would never have been my guess. So I don't consider him particularly powerful in the meta. That was a good matchup, and I got a little lucky. So we're gonna do the Huron one too, just to show that one as well. But that's the kind of matchup you can have, and that's where laddering kind of comes into play. There is kind of a win-loss balance to be had. So yeah, that was good. I got lucky. I saw a scary Logan deck and managed to beat it. Obviously, that was played by the AI, and the AI almost always will play the heavy hitters late. And in a Logan deck, you're likely, if you're a human player, you're likely to put out your heavy hitters early so they can just wipe through the opposing deck. That is bad. So that's Artemis. Captain Artemis is another one you see pretty highly in the competitive ladder, because if you see any small aggressive, like a low card count aggressive deck, it's going to really have a couple expensive, very high hit points cards who are really punished by the percent damage that Artemis does. And also Space Marines resist in a typically extremely powerful spot, so they just do lots and lots of damage in lots of different ways. So I still am fairly confident about this. That's a bummer. But yeah, watch out for Artemis. His ability is random, which saves me a little bit. So it never necessarily targets the card that's going to die, but it's still an extremely powerful ability, especially late game if you only have a couple cards on the board. Those last couple plays from Artemis himself can be real nasty. Let's see if he does. He's high enough level to have that dead shot, so he will put target acquired on Huron when I play him. We're going to go ahead and do this. And Huron's ability, and just to talk through Artemis, what I mean is every time Artemis plays a card, a random enemy card loses 20% of its starting health. So if it's a card that had like 300 health, that's significant. It's taking a pretty nasty beating before it even gets to move or do anything. Without attacking back, nothing. It's really, really good. And then to highlight Huron's ability, why he's super powerful, is anytime a friendly card gets a kill, that card then gains 40% of the attack stats of the card it killed, even if it didn't have them. So if I kill a Psyker with a non-Psyker, that card will then have some level of psychic attack, which is awesome. So right here you're going to see the Screamer get a little bit of extra melee damage. But this is a really, really bad matchup, especially with Tigurius over there just holding down the lane. I fully expect to lose this. And who's going to take the hit? He did. Wow, okay. He was pretty much dead no matter what, because that Furious Charge was going to hit him too. But I hoped that he would last another turn because... or not last another turn, but hoped that he would tank that Furious Charge instead of tanking the... Well, actually, it's still better, because Artemis's ability would have hit me harder. You're going to see a couple of these guys get a little bit of a... Or you're going to see the guy in the middle get a little bit of a attack buff. So he's quite a bit scarier. The really frightening deck I saw of this one, that really gave me trouble... Ooh, that's bad. Oh, gosh, and you can see how quickly the Greater Demon is losing health, even with fear, even with a really high starting point. The really scary Huron deck that I hit in the ladder that I built this based on... Oh, jeez. Target acquired too? Wow. Okay, thanks, buddy. That's a good deck. You may note that all of those are legendary and they all have double traits, so where will take the least damage back? Ouch. Ouch, 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 ouch. The one that this was inspired by had an almost maxed Keeper of Secrets, which makes a big difference. And then a rank 4, I think it was a maxed Terminator, so we had 4 shields instead of the 3 that I've got here. I might be able to take down Tigurius, which would be awesome. But he's got 3 scary bodyguards on the table. He's got 1 more to play. And when he does play Artemis, he's going to target acquired my Warlord. Which means that when... yikes, he's got me handily. Huron is pretty sink or swim, hit or miss. Oh no, and that's bad. He's way lower rating than me too, so I'm going to take a real punishing hit when I lose this one, because I have lost this one. Let's hit him anyway. Take out Tigurius. And I do think that part of the reason for Space Marine's dominance in all of these decks is Tigurius and Y'all. They were already really, really good and were buffed a little bit to keep them kind of on par with the other legendary and epic cards. I do think they're a little bit too powerful. And they slot into so many decks, and you can see how potent they are in this. Granted, it wasn't necessarily them that won that, but it really was them that won that. Where I couldn't really do a psychic attack because of them. I couldn't really make headway against the deck because of those shields. And I was promptly annihilated by the Njol popping on the board. They are so good. They're a little bit problematic for the game. You can beat them, of course, but they're still outside the power curve. And again, you'll see AI playing them extremely well, which means that they're probably a little bit too powerful. Alright, so that was Chaos getting 1. Good for you, Abaddon. So far I have 1 win out of 8 games. So now we have 2 Servants. We'll see both of those decks. I'm going to start with the Greyfax deck just to muck around, and then I will end on the Creed deck just to go ahead and do that. This is my weird mishmash Greyfax deck. I really have been enjoying this. It's one of those things where I was like, what traits do I want in a Greyfax deck? What stats do I have on cards that are leveled fairly well? What are useful utility pieces? And it's like Taunt, Barrage, Psionic Blast, Regeneration, and good attack stats. Okay. We'll see how leveled this Badrek is, because this could be a good match or a bad one. Good start. That guy sucks. Not to judge too much, but that is not a great card. And also a good start. So he's starting with some kind of weird stuff. Go ahead and pop this guy here to get some shields, or to get some health pulled off that guy. Also, obnoxious start. It's good in that there's nothing particularly scary across the board. It's bad in that that means it's a couple turns before I'll get to anything meaningful. And this guy's going to tank a lot of fire, while my bodyguards get hit back pretty hard. What did he just hit me for? Wow. Okay, so that's a max level, highly inspired. It's not quite max level, but it's really high up there, so he's got a really high range damage. That hurt a lot. I'm going to go ahead and range debuff you, buddy. So as I was saying, I was hoping that the poison would put a dent in that 200 hit points to the right there, but the taunt really kind of messes that up. You could see there that once he lost the ranged buff, he was not willing to shoot me, because I'll hit back harder in ranged, especially now that that taunt is gone. The benefit of that being taunt is that meant that he was poisoned as well as my front lane guy, so I was able to poison 2 cards where I was really only expecting to poison 1. Another good thing here is this is a Badrek deck that has a lot of cards, which usually means the cards in it are not terribly scary. I still need to watch out for some of the ones that could be in there that are very scary, but not as bad as some others. And this is a weird deck. Looks like he's got a lot of melee, which, you know what, if you're doing some weird stuff, why not play off meta? I'm going to wait for the shields to pop that guy. If I have enough to take out this rocker, we can really peel the layers back on this. But this guy has been amazing. Bunch of hit points, really great attack stats, both melee and ranged, benefits a lot from the buff, and is at a pretty cheap price point. He's really good. I was surprised when he just sort of worked well in this deck. And then this guy's one I talk about a lot as being a really nice combination of stats and cost, and has Barrage. Both of them could be leveled more, but they still hit very hard. Not going to shoot you yet because I can't kill anything. And so when you ready an attack type, I'm sure anybody watching this knows this, but if you click once on your attack type, it'll show you what the values are going to be, both what you're going to hit with and going to take. Some abilities notwithstanding, there are a handful that don't display correctly. Zmut, bonuses from target acquired or debuffs from taunt don't really show. So the math can still be a little bit fuzzy, but you can tell kind of if you're going to do a wipe or if you're going to be shot back. So I was waiting to do a full-on wipe because I didn't want to take the range damage back. Now let's see what you got. So pretty typical in a larger Badrek deck. The Fear guy, also fairly typical. Okay, then we get a scary thing. I'm going to bet that the last card is the Plane. Is that, I forget its name. The, oh, yuck. what do you call it? The plane that does the attack on drop, the really bad one. If it's either that or the Squig Buggy, and either one could give me some trouble here. So I have a taunt up on the board, so I'm going to go ahead and take the risk and shoot him. Drop a shield off that guy, because... Ta-da! Skardaka. So I get to tank his attack on drop. Nope, I get to go ahead and get a surprise board wipe. Yay, okay, that's what you want. And that's always a risk. You never know how high level the Skardaka is going to be when you see it, but if it gets to this point, it's real scary. So, I'm going to lose this one as well. You know what? I may still pull this one out, just because Greyfax is so scary. It is possible, but it's... I don't know if I'll have enough stats to tank even a single... Okay, I can tank one hit from this Skardaka, and I can use a bunch of Psychic. And what I need to do is do enough Psychic damage to pull Badrick himself, tank one ranged shot, which I probably won't, so that I can shoot him back. Oh no, god, that was a lot of damage. Okay. So now he's going to come and play, and I'm going to die. Because he's going to hit me, Skardaka is going to shoot at me twice. Yeah, that was pretty brutal. Yuck. Unless I can deal 200 damage on this. It's closer than I thought, but definitely not enough. No, so he's got me. So, there we go. We'll see if Creed can do a little bit better. But yeah, so like I said, I came into this fully expecting to lose because I'm seeing high-level decks that are well-tuned. I'm seeing the very, very scary stuff in Terra. This is why you do not compete in the ladder in the final weekend of the campaign, of the season, because you'll get hit extremely hard. So we'll do our last deck. And then we'll see if I'm even still in the top 10%, let alone top 6, because I've taken an utter beating. I'm going to go with Creed. There's a lot of different ways you can mix in Creed. I've talked about this before. This is a deck that I really love. Still very good, but it's somewhat early. And the biggest thing about it being I've got a couple cards in here that are low level. Like she only has Medicaid level 2 instead of 3. And this guy is level 4, so it really doesn't do all that much, but it's going to quickly ramp up. Once I start sinking a couple levels into this guy, which is going to take a while, it's legendary, but once this gets leveled up, it's going to be a really good piece in a Creed deck. And of course, this guy's actually quite scary already, but also will get scarier. So this is one that's going to grow with me quite a bit, but is still in a really good spot right now. Recap of Creed's ability: when a friendly card dies, the other surviving cards will redeploy to your hand a maximum of twice. So you can play a card once, have it redeployed to your hand, and then play it again. So each card can be played a total of 3 times. And you want to keep track of that so you don't drop it somewhere dangerous and forget about it. So you put a couple ablative cards in here that you expect to die because... That's a terrible draw. Because you expect them to die. Wow, that's a worse draw. You put them in because you expect them to die to trigger your redeploy, so it's not your more expensive cards dying. I've talked about that a little bit. It is kind of an up and down. I don't like abilities that require you to lose a card. Or I don't like building decks that rely on losing cards. You can build really powerful decks that have those abilities that don't necessarily require them, so you just mix in a bunch of really powerful cards. If one dies, it triggers your ability. You don't maximize the ability, but you do kind of maximize the deck. Oh, that's a bummer. Whereas in this case, I'm seeing that, not good. But I lost a card, so these guys are going to pop back to my hand, so I get another shot at that. And I know what he played. The other downside to Creed, something definitely to watch out for, is that because you're redeploying a lot of your cards, your deck stays full, and so your draws can really, really suck. Because the cards that come back into your hand, they come back into your deck, I should say. They don't necessarily come back into your hand, but they often do, so rather than getting some of the variety in your deck you expect to have, ooh, that's not good. I actually thought the Barrage from Bragg was going to kill her because I'm used to running him in Greyfax decks. So that can kind of mess with your cadence of your play, and you can really get kind of hosed. That's one of the downsides of Creed, is you can't control him as much as someone like Lilith. And also his ability relies on having a crowded deck rather than having an elite deck, because you rely on friendly cards dying instead of friendly cards getting kills. So it's got some ups and downs. I do think Lilith is better, but Creed is still very, very powerful and definitely not to be underestimated. Nice. So right there, I've been fishing for this tank the whole time to do that attack on drop, and I wasn't getting it because of the luck of the draw. My Dominator, the Valkyrie's taken a bit of a beating, so I wanted to get it back in hand, give it a little bit of a break, and let someone else sort of rotate in to take some damage like that. That was a real... That put a dent in the old tanks. This guy's really good because he has a decent ranged attack, has melee to strip shields, and also has his own shields. So redeploy is very powerful with shields. I don't like putting too many in because you lose a lot of your offensive output, but 1 or 2 is really, really good in a Creed deck. So I definitely recommend keeping him in there. And now we're at kind of a weird spot where I'm not really sure who's going to die. No, it's going to be... Well, it depends. If he does Psychic for the next 5 turns, then my Oghren is going to die first, which he's going to do. But I can cheese that a little bit. I can hit him with melee, deliberately lose my bodyguard over here to recharge the shields on my Oghren. Risky play because that puts him at really low hit points. If I put him up against something that hits really hard, he will just die anyway. Because a powerful enough attack will punch through shields. Ooh. We'll go with the debuff, we'll see. Because I don't know what's going to come in behind her, so I'm a little bit concerned about putting something too valuable in front of her. So we'll go with the debuff and we'll take the healthier card. And just to kind of talk through what I was just doing there, I could have played the tank that would have done the attack on drop and killed Yvraine, and then gotten the shot and killed the Banshee over here, but then I don't know what's behind it, and then maybe something very frightening back there. So I didn't really want to do that. And here we'll give up a shield. It's going to be a nice handy wipe, and we'll see the whole deck, which is great because that means I still have my redeployed tank to drop on Rakarth himself. And didn't take a loss. That's good so far. What else we got? We're going to have the Solitaire. Okay, there's the other option. I'm betting still Solitaire. Yeah, okay. Those are pretty common finishers in your Rakarth decks. It's very heavy melee, and so that's exactly the kind of thing you would see. So now I have to do 320 damage before he kills my entire deck. Which with Rakarth is a little bit easier because he is very hard hitting, but... Well, excuse me, he's very durable, but he's not all that hard hitting. So I do actually have a little time to work on him here. And we're going to go ahead and go with this. And my shield is redeployed, which is great. I'm probably going to lose the Dominator first here, but let's see how much damage my tank can push through. And this is also where it's nice to have the Dominator on the board because it has that area effect overflow damage. And I do need to be careful. Ah, shoot, got him right through the shields. I do need to be careful here too because I only have a limited number of bodyguards, and that's where you can really get yourself in trouble with a Creed deck, is being in a point where your last few cards are, Creed himself. Who's got more melee? 87, 90, 86. So I'm gonna probably lose the tank fairly quickly here. No, what is it? So I have a range debuff. He's already melee debuffed. So if I do this, I mean, I didn't really need the range debuff. I did the melee debuff so that my tank would survive the melee hit, which I don't know that that was really worth it. That was just kind of my conservative instincts talking. And Creed will redeploy, which is good. I don't get to shoot him, but I think that between these two, he's still got me. And that's all the things sort of came up that I was talking about. So, ran out of bodyguards, which is a thing that Creed does because you're actively waiting for your stuff to die. I think he's got lethal. Not doing the math on this one. Yeah, he's got me. But it was close. And also, Creed is a bodyguard you do not want on the table, ever. Die. So that was a pretty decent Creed deck, but like I talked about, a lot of the cards in it were fairly low level, and that was a tough matchup, because with any of the redeployed decks, you do kind of rely on using your maneuverability to punch through the opponent, and if you hit a really, really durable opponent like Rakarth, they can tank it and slow you down just enough that the end game is very unfavorable. So that was my 10 games I promised to play, and I lost 9 of them, which also was expected. But if you've stuck with me this long, I appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out. Hopefully that was helpful to see kind of the decks you run into at this point. And if you feel like, please pour one out for my top 6%. But I did want to show that and play some ladder games where we actually saw kind of what happens up there. And as much as I want that bonus card, it's okay. That's fine. Ooh, God, I dropped way below. It's going to be a long time before I get the cards to play this, and I don't really play Leagues Votann anyway, so it was just kind of fun to get up there. But, yeah, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. No, it's totally fine. But I may play a little bit more, but we've only got 5 hours left, and I need to go to bed. So good luck at the end of the season here. Hopefully you enjoy seeing these games. Hopefully it informs your following season. And, yeah, hit me up if you'd like to see anything else.